Today, I'm going to be talking about some technology that I've used to deal with inquiry-based learning, to deal with the Moore method. I had a lot of conversations with Ted Behavior about what could actually be done with technology to work with the method specifically, not with content, but actually to improve on the Moore method. So, first of all, there's been a lot of good talks this week already. And I wanted to point out a couple quotes which are somehow relevant for me, for my talk. So the first talk, Ed Parker mentioned something about fester time, about time which students need to be thinking about problems on their own, that somehow having classes maybe even every day or classes during the summer in a compressed time, it's hard to do an inquiry-based learning class because they need time to think about it, right? And Harry Lucas, when he first spoke at the beginning of the conference, he mentioned, I think, some quotes from Bill Behavior about giving hints to students and sometimes awkward silences. Okay, and there's been several other talks. So, for example, Dana Ernst just spoke, and he mentioned that students somehow need to work through a problem several times, so multiple rounds of revision. Okay, and so several of these things are things that I'm going to go a little bit more detail in this talk, and so I'm going to first give some pictures which illustrate a metaphor of TED behaviors. So I really like this metaphor for learning, using inquiry-based learning, of teaching someone to cross a stream. Okay? So our job as instructors is to give enough stepping stones that they can cross, like in picture 1. Okay? This is a well-designed bridge that looks like stepping stones across a stream. Okay? People can walk across this thing without even noticing that they are walking across the stream, okay, without any thought whatsoever. But you don't want to give too many stones because then they're not going to notice, right? They're not even going to notice you're in the class, okay? But you also don't want to give too few stepping stones, or you might be in this situation like on the top right over here, where they're probably not going to be able to cross, right? You might end up jumping at one point there across this whitewater, and you might drown in the river, right? You're not going to pass the class. Okay, you're not going to pass the test of crossing the stream. Inquiry-based learning is maybe a little bit more like this picture down here, where it's a little bit tricky to get across the stream, right? Actually, ideally, I would put maybe some stones over here and stuff. Maybe some of them are underwater, some of them are above water, and really make it a little tricky getting across there. Okay, you're going to get your feet wet, but you're going to learn something about balance. Okay, you're going to learn something about foot-eye coordination. Okay, you're going to get across that stream, but you're going to learn something by doing it. Okay, to me, that's what Moore method is. That's what inquiry-based learning is. Okay, our job as instructors is to give the right sequence of stepping stones, not necessarily linear like this bottom picture, but maybe tossing in some extra stepping stones along the way, those hints. Okay, those hints might be extra stepping stones that we decide to place as they're going across the stream. So, doing that, I've run into some issues, which I'm betting I'm not the only one here. Some students never come to office hours. Okay, whether they need help or not, they don't come. Some students come too much. All right, some students, they come in, they toss their bags down, they come in maybe in a group with their friends, they take up residence, they put their coat on different chairs, and they sit there for the whole hour, or at least they want to. Okay. Well, Ted's advice to me about this was try to set a time limit of like 5 minutes, right? You can kick them out and tell them to come back in half an hour after they've thought about a question that you asked them, right? But somehow try to push them out so that they can come back later maybe, but make sure that they're thinking about some stuff on their own. Okay. Well, these two issues here, it's a problem, right? But it's also an opportunity for some new ideas. Okay. So specifically, this talk is somewhat about technology. So this was my first idea, using a smart pen. Okay, which I actually have up here on the document camera projector. You may have seen that if you came in early. I'll put it. I'll show it again later. But this smart pen, essentially, it can record what's being written So you don't have to scan the image later. You don't have to type it up later or whatever. It actually records what you're writing with it. Okay? Smart Pen looks a lot like a pen. It records what you're writing on the special dot paper. Okay? And you connect this pen with a cable to your computer. Right? You connect it with a cable. And guess what? Well, it takes about a minute to upload. And then you can actually set it up to upload. It takes maybe 20 minutes to set up at the beginning of the semester. You can actually set it up to upload directly to a specific folder. Okay? And if you're familiar with Dropbox or other file storage devices on the internet, then you can actually set this up so that the next time you connect to the internet, it automatically uploads that to that Dropbox folder. Okay? So you have students who now are writing up their homework with the Smart Pen, okay? Or maybe just all of their work. Okay? All the work that they're doing, all the brainstorming that they're doing, they write it up with the Smart Pen. And at the end of the day, they, when they get back to their dorm room, they plug in their Smart Pen, it gets charged, stuff automatically gets uploaded onto the internet for you to look at, for you to give comments on. Okay, this is like the dream as an instructor, to be able to see everything that they're doing, right? Everything that they're doing. Okay. Well, let me say a little bit more specifically about what I did. So my classes this last year, spring and fall, were Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So on Mondays, they would turn in professional homework assignments. So this is often LaTeX homework assignments, or at least very well-written, handwritten assignments. And specifically, this is the special electronic homework assignments, is on Monday evenings and Wednesday evenings, they would submit a Smart Pen assignment in the fall semester for my intro proofs class. Or in the spring, when I decided maybe the $75 for the Smart Pen was a little bit too much, I allowed them to do it any way they wanted. Okay, so they often did LaTeX because some of them had learned LaTeX. But they also used other methods, such as taking a picture, or scanning the file, or writing in a Microsoft Word, or whatever they wanted. Okay, Microsoft Word sometimes had some conversion issues. But taking a picture actually worked out pretty well. This is a student submission here. Okay, this is actually a pretty good student submission. He was working on a proof of the Chinese remainder theorem, and he got all this work done, and he reduced it to a question about divisibility and congruences. And then he said, I can't find a good proposition from chapter A. He knew there would be a proposition from chapter A that would solve it, or something of that sort. But somehow, the idea is these informal submissions, I was not expecting success with. I actually liked it better when they did not complete the proof. Okay? This is an easy thing that they submit Monday nights and Wednesday nights. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, again, this class is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So say on Monday night, they turn this in electronically. Okay? They actually have until 1 p.m. Tuesday, technically. But Monday night, they turn it in. Tuesday between 1 and 5 p.m., I look at it. I spend a couple hours, hopefully just 1 hour, sometimes more if I take my time too much. And I give some really brief comments. Okay? And I give them 1 point for doing it. Right? As long as they sort of put together some good theorems and stuff. If they just relied on intuition, or if they completely ignored all of the discussion that we had in class the week beforehand, then maybe I'll give them 0 points. Okay? But if they actually put in a good effort, they get 1 point for this assignment. Okay? And, but there's this extra caveat. So they work on it Monday night after class. They get the feedback by 5 p.m. Tuesday. And to get that 1 point, they actually have to have also looked at it Tuesday night before the next class. Okay? So I get really mad at them when they don't look at it before the next class. Because the whole point of this is giving them some feedback between the Monday and Wednesday class. Okay? And then similarly, add 2 days to all of those things I just said, and they get another piece of feedback between the Wednesday and Friday class. Okay? Just like if they came to office hours. Just like if they came to office hours. So specifically, here's an example of the feedback that I gave. Okay, this student got 1 point. And there's some stuff written in red here. I did this with Adobe Acrobat Professional. You can also do it with Foxit, free program. There's some comments up here, I think, about defining variables. And there's a comment down here, well, yeah, this says great, because he did a good job. Okay? Even though he has a big missing gap here in his proof, it could be filled with a lemma. Okay, it could be filled with a lemma using really previous knowledge from previous chapters. And so he said he can't find one. I think I gave him some tips here, or I said, maybe you can write your own lemma. Prove that. Okay. And he did get it. He did get it in the end. He had a really good proof in the end. But again, so Tuesday, Thursday, between 1 and 5 p.m., I do this quick grading thing. Okay, quick. I actually have to like hold myself back from writing detailed comments about grammar and defining variables and professionalism because I'm really just looking at whether or not they figured out the mathematics behind it. Okay, and sometimes there's issues with the grammar and professionalism there, but I'm trying to read between the lines a little bit for them there. Okay, and the whole point of this is that on the Wednesday and Friday classes, they're a lot more likely to be able to present a problem. Okay, a lot more likely because they've now thought about it, they've gotten a hint, they've gotten some stepping stones, they've had a chance to check in with me, even if they didn't come to office hours. Okay, so this is a sort of equality thing. It's getting everybody to have an office hour-like interaction between classes. Okay, so a couple types of comments that I might put on their papers. As a tip, I might say, well, look back at the chapter A problems. Okay, which things actually deal with this definition? Which things deal with this concept? Maybe problems A20 through 25. Okay, maybe they can write their own lemma of a similar type. This first comment is like the one that you saw on that previous slide. The next one, some stuff from Intro to Proof class. Okay, if I'm teaching number theory and they're dealing with proof concepts, I might suggest to them to clear up the style using proof by cases, or maybe that they don't really have to use proof by contradiction. Maybe they can do it a little bit more directly and it would make more sense. Maybe they're having some issues with quantifiers, right? They're saying, assume for the sake of contradiction this thing is false, but then they didn't realize that there was a quantifier involved. Okay, and so I might say, oh, careful, you might want to go back and look at this thing. Okay, that's a very common type of thing. But again, I'm ignoring anything about professionalism, and I'm really just focusing on the solution. Okay. General effects of this were actually quite interesting. So the class, the main objective of this was for students to come to class prepared. Okay. In the fall semester, in my intro proof class, I actually had a TA, and because I wanted it to be very simple grading for the TA, I made it so that the problems that students submitted were the same for the whole class, usually. Maybe I'd give them two choices, but it was do this problem for the next class. Okay? And so there were sometimes that everybody's solutions were just so phenomenal that I could say, well, we're not even going to have to discuss that in class. Everybody's already figured that one out. Okay, well, let's move on to something else. Okay, so this actually quickened the pace of the class because there was less of this dead time of nobody having a solution to a certain problem. There were some problems that got skipped. Okay, the fall semester in my proofs class, we actually did an extra chapter. We did stuff that I normally rush a little bit at the end, maybe lecture about. We actually did an extra chapter worth of problem solving at the end because we had time. Okay, it was pretty good. I've had pretty good evaluations on these. Just this semester in my number theory class, I got my student evaluations back recently. I had a perfect score on instructor responsiveness. I think that's the first time I've ever had a perfect score on something. Perfect score on instructor responsiveness, with 3/4 of the class responding. Okay, and I just got my first teaching award this last month, so I'm very, very happy about that. So some other things. So effects on professional homework. So each student had their own Dropbox folder, and because of that, I could actually compare their various assignments. Okay, so all of their assignments would be sitting in the same Dropbox folder, even their professional assignments. So I could easily compare whether or not they looked at my comments, whether or not they took them into account, and I could also compare what they've been having issues with really easily. It was just click on a file, it's there. I see exactly what issues they had on the last assignment. Now I can make sure to take those into account in the next assignment. Some information, basic things, that's me at the top. Okay. This is my website here, geneseo.edu/Rault. And I put an interesting thing, which you might be interested in. I'm going to give a 5-minute talk about that tomorrow, about a priority sorting queue, which a TA of mine created. And here's the SmartPen website and the file sharing.
Hello. About the SmartPens, you said that they cost about $75 a piece. Is that right?
But I don't have a textbook.
Did you?
As in the textbook's free, so I feel like they can pay $75 for a
Okay.
pen.
So did you have anybody balk at that concept?
Some, not too many.
Can you put the last slide with all the addresses up?
Nice to get an easy question.
When you're talking about grading the professional versions and comparing them or giving feedback and looking back at old assignments, how much time does that take?
So the actual time on Tuesdays and Thursdays of the informal stuff, that's almost no time. It's really quick. It's a couple hours for a class of 25. Maybe even an hour for a class of 25. The professional assignments, those ones, it's more like if they're resubmitting an assignment, then I will definitely compare their results, or at the end of the semester for their journal, then I want to compare whatever they've written up in the journal to previous submissions of that, if it's something that they previously submitted. It's more to sort of help me be able to gauge what the issues are, what I should put comments about.
So you don't regularly for every assignment look back necessarily? Okay.
No, only when I see like really big issues, then I'm like, is this new or is this, yeah.
Did you notice any unexpected learning like changes in their learning because of this? Or did students self-report anything? Or did they actually use this when you didn't make them? I guess that's 3 questions, sorry.
So the last question first. Did they actually use the SmartPens when I didn't make them? Yes. Not all of them did. Some of them very purposefully refused to use the SmartPen or refused to use Dropbox when I gave them the option. But the vast majority of them did use it. Some of them use the SmartPen in other classes because it also has this audio recording feature. Some of them did all of their notes using the SmartPen. Yeah.
So I stepped in a little after you had started talking, so if you had already mentioned this, then I apologize. But when they are using the SmartPen, do they have the ability to go back and erase their thoughts, or can you actually utilize it where they can't adjust the mistakes so you can actually see their thought process when you get there?
It's a pen, so they can't erase. Yeah, there is a way if you're recording audio to actually see the order of thoughts. Okay, because if you're recording audio, when you play it, it actually, I do this for quiz solutions, for example, or exam solutions for other classes, where I'll actually write with the SmartPen while I'm speaking, and the words pop up on the screen while you're saying them, when you're listening to it back. Yeah. And back to Brian about learning outcomes. So I would say I did notice people getting it more deeply. People were more prepared to be presenting things in class. As far as the end of the semester, I didn't check on that specifically, but it was more a day-by-day thing, yeah.
All right, in order to keep us on schedule, we have one more question, but PJ, will you just jump forward and start swapping stuff out? And Patrick, you can answer one more. I'm going to ask one while I'm walking back to this one. Will you tell us what your total grading rubric was? What percentage of grades went for what things?
The informal feedback was at most 10% at most. I tried to keep that pretty minimal. And in general, I would drop a couple of the lowest ones if they missed it. That's the one thing which I would not accept late assignments with. Okay? Because somehow the point is that they have a chance of looking at it on Tuesday night, right? So if they submit it late, they're not going to have a chance to see my feedback.
Why did you choose the Dropbox particularly? Since there are many other iCloud service available, is there any special thing?
It was the one I was told about.
Like, for example, you didn't choose the Google Drive or something?
Google Drive, I think Google Drive is relatively new, isn't it? It used to only do Word documents. So I think file sharing, general file sharing on that is actually new.